Many of the older Alpines have this sorry excuse for air conditioner overhead return vents. What they used is a cheap ass metal screen with 6 screws, or 8, I guess there is. Yeah, 3, 6, 8. Not new math, old style math. And they use a cheap paper filter thing behind it. Keystone's idea of a filter was this cheap ass piece of cardboard that had a filter piece glued on here. And try finding these nowadays. Good luck with that. I've used aftermarket material, and as you can see, this last batch, when I took it off, one of the screws hung up and twisted all the mesh up. I mean, it's decent mesh. It's probably on a MERV scale, probably a MERV 6, I guess. So it does the job. It filters the dust and hair and crap out before it gets to the air conditioner evap coil and keeps it from getting plugged up. But it's a real pain to change one of these. And as you can see, when Keystone built this 2014, they did a fair job. But if you look, you see 3 screws down on this side. They did good there. And then they kind of did okay here on the front screw, and on the back screw, maybe they caught a little bit of the material. But if you look on this side, my 16-year-old and 14-year-old granddaughters could have done better. There's 3 screws that don't do anything. This is a close-up view of the return vent. And the way this return vent works, if you look over on this side where my hand is sticking up into, there's a duct, and that runs right up to the bottom of the AC unit. And this side is, of course, sealed, this side is sealed, and this side is sealed. So all of your return air goes through here and through this other one located on the far side up to the center where the air conditioner is located at. So here we go, walking into my so-called wood shop. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a frame. And as you can see, we have this frame cut and glued. And the mitered edges come out not bad for a wood butcher. So what we've done, the wife and I talked about this. She's a pretty good little craftsman type person. Well, she's just a great person all the way around. After all these years, what the heck. Anyways, what I've done is we've made a frame that is slightly larger than the grill. This is a grill off of the overhead vent. And as you can see, when I lay this grill on top of the frame, we have an overlap all the way around the frame. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the center hole here and the center hole here. And we are going to use these flush-mounted nut keepers. And what this will do is it will go flush against the wood underneath, one on each end. And then I'm going to use a thumb knob screw, like so. The thumb knob screw is going to go through the hole here. There'll be one down here on the end. And those thumb screws will screw into these, which are going to be flush down with the edge of the wood. And so the idea and the concept is now with this frame up, what we'll do is probably mount this frame using some countersunk screws of some sort. Haven't decided just what yet. I think we're going to paint this wood rather than go with a stain material. There's already enough wood stain material in the Alpine. We're going to use probably a satin white or an eggshell white color on this frame to more or less match the ceiling and more or less blend in with this. And then we're going to take the remaining screws that were originally in here, and we're going to cut the threads off of them and glue the head in, and then repaint this so that these will have dummy screws in it, if you will, in these locations, and just a thumb screw on each end. That way, when we need to take this panel off to change the filter, 2 thumb screws is going to be a lot easier to deal with than the 8 screws that's in there now, and half of them aren't even screwed into anything. For filter material, I'm still working on some concepts with that, but what I think we're going to do is take a MERV filter from our house, and we're going to cut the cardboard away from the edges of that MERV filter so that the MERV filter will lay around here on the overlap of this wood. And then when we take and put this metal grate over the top, the metal grate will compress that down using the 2 thumb screws. And I think that we'll come up with a fairly inexpensive design and something that's going to be a heck of a lot easier to work with when it comes to changing air filters. But I just wanted to give you a sneak preview, and it may stir some ideas in some of the other folks out there. I had thought about using a hinge on this, and then that got too complicated, and my abilities to work with wood are less than stellar. Most of what I make with wood gets thrown in the fireplace and burnt, but we're going to give that a shot and see how it comes out. Okay, so we've wood butchered and hacked up a piece of the MERV 10 pleated material. This frame, as it's laying, is going to be mounted up against the roof of or ceiling of the Alpine, and this side that you see on the filter is going to be what is facing downwards. And then we will take the screen, and once we get this in place, we will take the vent screen and attach the vent screen. The vent screen will go over the pleated material, and of course we're going to have a thumb screw here and a thumb screw here that will hold this grill onto the frame and will also hold the pleated material in place. So let's flip everything over quickly. And basically, this is what the backside that's going to be mounted up against the ceiling of the Alpine is going to look like. And as you can see, it's a nice open, still semi-pleated filter. And if I push this down, there won't be any gaps. You don't see any daylight in there. So we've got good filter action all the way around on this frame. And that's going to make us a nice inexpensive frame, and not bad for some wood butcher work. We'll show you folks the final product when we get it sanded and painted and get everything mounted in place, and let you folks see and think what you might be able to do with your older Alpine that has the cheap old style filters that you just about can't get anymore. And who wants to take off 8 screws every time to change a filter? Well, good evening. This is the Alpine guy, and we're messing with this air filter return grill and frame trim to cover up the botched hatch job or hack job that Keystone did when they built it. And I originally was going to use this nice MERV 10 filter like we use in the house, but the backing on this filter, it's got this, I guess it's a lightweight aluminum, and it gives me troubles when I go to put the grill down flush against the frame. And so there's only one place this goes, and that's take one in the trash. And what we decided to use instead, we went over to Walmart, since Home Depot's 40 miles up the road for us out here in our little cow town that we live in. And we went over at Walmart and we looked at the filters that we had, and they've got a Filtrette filter, and I think the MERV rating on it was MERV 6 or MERV 8. Yeah, MERV 8 I think it was. Anyways, the size on the filter that we picked is 20 by 30 by 1 inch. And with this one large filter, we have enough material that we have cut one already and installed it. And this will be the second filter for the second return. And we have enough raw material left to cut 2 more filters for the bedroom returns. What I like about this filter is it's got a plastic backing on it that attaches across all of the ribs on the filter material. So this is the side that will show through the grill when the frame and new grill is mounted up in the Alpine, and it'll look nice and clean. And on the back side, it's got this plastic material that goes across and holds this filter together. And the neat thing about that is when I mount this filter grill, which I have mounted it to the frame that's going to go on the Alpine, go up against the roof. When you look on the back side of this, you can see that this is nice and tight and stretched. And so the frame has locked all of this filter material in place against the grill. And so there's absolutely no way that the filter material can be sucked up away from the grill and the frame and up into the roof air conditioning unit. And this is what it's going to look like if you viewed it from the top. And so if we were looking up, if I don't drop the phone, this is what you're going to see. And when it's on the roof, you're not going to see anything, you know. Quite frankly, who sits in their fifth wheel and looks up at the ceiling all the time? I don't. And so this is what the knurled knobs look like. This is what the new grill work looks like. For those of you that that only have 2 holes on your Alpine grills, you won't have to buy new filters like I did. I mean, this is the job that they did, and this was OEM. This was not by me, and you can see the extra holes that they drilled, and I can look at that and tell that somebody drilled that with a hand drill. They didn't even use a drill press, you know. So I mean, you could see the difference. That's a factory hole, and that certainly isn't, and neither is this. But anyways, this is going to work nice. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this apart so that you can see how the filter lays in there. Okay, so basically if this was mounted on the ceiling of the Alpine, all I have to do is unscrew that knurled knob, unscrew this knurled knob, and boy, I got a suntan today mowing the yard. But now we would just lift the grill off, and of course we're looking at the filter, and you can see where I've made a little cutout on each end with a pair of scissors, just so that the knurled knob, when I go to put it through the grill, it actually will go in and thread right through that. It's not grabbing the filter material, and we're not tearing the filter up, which was what was happening with the other stuff, the original OEM stuff, and anything else that you'd try to use. And so this makes a fairly easy filter to cut out. You can get 4 filters from that filter that I showed you that the wife and I cut apart. Again, it's a 20 by 30 by 1 inch. And to the right, I have another piece of filter material, and this will be for the second living room grill. And I'll just need to trim it up a little bit and trim 2 little slots on each end like so that the thumb screws can go in. And so that gives me 2 filters. This is the remaining material left, and there is ample material to cut 2 more filters. So for $10 at Walmart, you can get a decent pleated filter with a good backing material on it that's going to hold the filter in place against the grill work. And if you make a frame like what I've made, and the air conditioning return suction is not going to be able to draw this pleated filter away from the frame. And so that's the completed project. My miter cut was not the best on this side, but you're not going to see much of the wood the next ones that I make, the miters will look like that. And what we're going to do, so for those that are interested in creating this project or using my ideas to do something similar yourself, the overall length on this from the outside miter edge is 14 inches. That's from edge to edge on the outside. And the overall outside width is 8 1/2 inches. And by using those dimensions that I've shown, when I lay this grill up here in place, and you can see where the holes line up, we have, maybe, I'm not going to measure it, there's probably a 1/4 to 3/8 on each side. And when we look at the front edge, probably 1/4, and probably a 1/4 at the back. Actually, let me get that where it's supposed to be. And so now you can see that probably a 1/4 of an inch on the front edge, 1/4 of an inch on the back edge. So roughly a 1/4 inch or so all the way around, and that's all the frame that's showing. You could make the frame larger by using wider material. And our local wood shop made this material for us. And what I'm going to use for paint, I was going to hand brush some sort of paint on, but I saw up at Home Depot they have this bare white paint, and it matches the color of this grill pretty closely. And it's a paint and primer, gloss white. And so that's what I'm going to spray this wood with. It'll probably take 3 or 4 coats to get a nice covering on it. But I think it's going to look a lot nicer. And with these 2 thumb screws versus pulling out 8 of these number 2 wood screws that they had, well, they weren't even wood screws. They were number 2 sheet metal screws is what they were. I think I'm going to be a lot happier, and it'll give you folks an idea. Well, I need to straighten up this workbench. We actually have a pretty good workbench in here, but a lot of clutter on it right now with various things the wife's doing, gourds and you name it. But we can usually get most things done. And to get my angles and stuff cut nicely, that's what I use as a chop saw with a stand. And it makes pretty good work. I can wood butcher with the best of them. We'll get the final thing all dressed up and painted, and install one, and make another short video so that you folks can get an idea what it's actually going to look like mounted on the ceiling. And then you can decide if it's a project that might interest you and pursue it, or through my clumsiness and wood butchering and everything else, it may give you a better idea than what I have to make something for yourself instead of having to deal with the OEM type filters that are currently on there right now. Well, I thought we'd come out to the wood shop and see how our second coat of paint on this original prototype frame has turned out, and it's looking pretty good. Second coat, I think we'll let that dry, and 1 more coat. And you can see I have covered up the 2 T-nuts so that I didn't get paint down in those threads, and then that would make it difficult to put the thumb screws in. And over on this side of the workbench, we have the other 3 frames that we've just let those cure, and the glue dried enough to where we could do some initial rough sanding, and then we're going to come in and pretty up these mitered edges. If I'd have had some nice 45-degree picture frame clamps, I think I could have made better joints, but a little wood putty and some paint, and I don't think you'll see the wood joints show up at all through the paint. And once these frames are mounted to the ceiling of the Alpine, I think everything is going to stay in shape and hold its position just fine. But I wanted to give you a sneak preview, and we'll do a quick fit test since I cut these frames 1/4 of an inch longer than the original, you can see the difference in the amount of wood that sticks out over the edge versus the original one. And I can't set the frame in there because the paint's wet. But so we'll fit test all 3 of these just to make sure that I made everything the same. And that one drops in, and we'll check this one real quick, and that one drops in. So all 3 of those frames are going to work perfect. We'll have just a little bit more wood showing on the edges, but it's going to be painted white. It's going to blend in, and it's going to attach to that ceiling, and I'm not going to have no more ugly mess when trying to deal with that. So we'll continue to let that paint dry. It's still got a couple of tacky spots on it here and there, and so if I try to go out and mount this up inside the Alpine on the ceiling, I'm going to get fingerprints all over the frame, and I don't want to do that. So meanwhile, these are the 3 frames that I made 1/4 of an inch longer, and we've done a rough sanding on these, and we took wood putty. And I just use plastic wood. It works pretty good to cover up most of the mistakes that I make, and boy, when it comes to woodwork, I make more than the average bear, I can tell you that. But anyways, the wood putty looks like it's nice and cured. This is the side that's going to be showing when I mount these up. And so we're going to go out and do a finish sand on these and get 1 coat of paint on it and let them start drying. Okay, so we've got the other 3 frames that we cut 1/4 inch larger on the outside to accommodate those new grills. We've got the final sanding done on them, and the miter joints look pretty good. They're not as good as a skilled cabinet maker or carpenter guy would be. I'm an aircraft mechanic, an auto mechanic, diesel mechanic, electronics engineer, and computer guy. But when it comes to wood and I just, we have this thing, you know, and usually the wood wins. Okay, we've got a first coat of paint on these other 3 frames for the grills, for the air returns, and the wind is blowing real good out here, but no dirt in the air, so we'll let the sun and the wind dry these a little bit and check on them. But just wanted to give you an idea of what the 3 other frames will look like, and we still have the holes to drill, put the T-nuts in, and get the filter material cut and trimmed, and then of course go out and mount the frame of each one of these up in place where the old grills were, and then put the new grills and filters in. But that gives you an idea of what the project's gonna look like, I hope. One thing I did want to bring up is some folks are concerned about the filter material being sucked through on the bottom side of this when it's installed up in the ceiling. Well, with the mesh material that I'm using, with those plastic strips, the edges of this frame all the way around are going to anchor that in place. However, this is the original OEM grill, and you can see that these fins are in fact flush, whereas the fins on the ones I bought at Home Depot, they stick up above the edge. So that was the problem there. Had I not had that problem, then I probably would have put a center brace across like this, and then the filter would be further supported to prevent it from being sucked up inside, up into the air conditioning unit through the return grill duct. And of course, if I take this filter, or excuse me, this screen, and we lay it down in place, you can see that that would have worked real good. Whereas, and this paint is still a little tacky, whereas if I tried to put this brace in here with these grill returns I bought from Home Depot, with the way these grills stick down, well, you can see that I would have the problem. You can see that the frame is not going to sit flush. So that's why there's no center brace, but it's a point to consider if any of you are interested in constructing a frame or use some of the ideas that I've shown in some of these prototype videos. But for mine, they're not going to have this. I don't need it, and when I get this installed, we'll do a demonstration of the air conditioner and show you how the filter material stays in place. Well, the sun's up. Alpine guy out here in Idaho. We're going to get out in the fifth wheel before the fifth wheel heats up as the day gets hotter. And we're going to install this frame, which is the very first frame that I made. And it is a 1/4 inch smaller in overall diameter. And the other 3 frames are 1/4 inch larger to accommodate these fins on the back that I'd talked about. But what I wanted to show you before I go out to mount these grills, there's a lot of concern from some folks that have been watching what I'm doing about the filter return material getting sucked up through the return duct. Well, as I have shown, with this filter installed and then placed down over the top of this wood frame, there's going to be some compression right in here against the 4 corners of that wood frame that are going to hold this filter in place along with these plastic strips that this particular filter has. So it's not going to go anywhere. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take I didn't have what I really wanted to use, so we're going to use one of these command strips, and it's the extra large size. And what I'm going to do is cut off, I think, probably 4 pieces, maybe 6 pieces. We'll put a spot here, here, one here, and here, and one here and here. And then when I place that filter down, this material is going to press against this, and I'll demo it. As you can see, it sticks to it. It's going to stick to it. So it's going to help hold that filter in place. And so that may be something that you might want to consider looking at. And I was going to start with this overhead grill in the living room area, but the wife said since I made the first frame is 1/4 inch smaller overall in length compared to the other 3 that I made afterwards to make corrections for the new grill vents that we bought. She wanted me to put it in the bedroom so you can't see it. And quite frankly, if your eyes are that calibrated that you can look up at the ceiling and see the difference in 1/4 inch length from this side to this side return vent over there, maybe you need to drink more coffee. So at the wife's request, I'm gonna put the very first frame that I made up in the bedroom, and we're gonna use this grill to start with. I could do this one, but I told her I want to film this, and she can't hold the camera and look up. It gives her, she's got a little vertigo from time to time. So I'm going to use this one, and nobody's going to see this when it's the difference in the 1/8 of an inch from edge to edge. But this is the existing frame. You have 3 screws, 2 screws, and 3 more screws. So you got to pull all these 8 screws out just to get this stupid return air grill filter down. And so this is what you get when you finally get those 8 screws off. Again, this is in the bedroom, and it's more or less the same way as the front. You've got this passage is blocked off here, and this passage is blocked off here, and then we have return air on both sides, and that sucks up somewhere about right in here, which would be the center where the air conditioner is mounted at, and then the other duct interconnects with it. This also is open on both sides, as you can see. Well, you can't see, but we'll show you. So we're open on this side, and we're open on this side, blocked on this side, and blocked on this side. And the reason we have 2 openings in this on this particular side is this is a racetrack system. And so what that means is if the rear air conditioner is running and I'm not running the bedroom one, the ducts back here are interconnected up inside the ceiling material, and there's a duct that runs up to the bedroom. And so we are going to get air-conditioned air that's going to come out through these ducts, and it's also going to return. Okay, so on the left is the new frame that we're going to put up with the filter material and the new duct. And this is the original OEM style filter that Keystone used on the 2014s, and I think up to about 2018 or so. And this is the grill that they installed with 8 screws. Some only have 2 screws, but they put 8 in here, and these weren't made this way. They came with 2 holes, and then Keystone had problems, obviously, when they went to put these grills on. The 2 screws end to end would not hold the grill nice and flush up against the overhead ceiling material, and so aesthetically it looked bad, and also functionally it looked bad because there were gaps in between the filter grill and screen and the ceiling of the Alpine. So to correct that, this is what they did, and at least in here they actually caught 8 places through the ceiling material, and but we're going to fix that with the frame that we're going to put up. And so what we're going to do is just hold this frame that I have made, and we're hoping that it's going to cover all of the original screw holes that Keystone made through the ceiling material when they install these grills. And as you can clearly see, it's going to cover everything, and when we install it, we're going to keep the back edge just a little bit away from this trim strip joint connection for the ceiling material, in case we needed to take the ceiling down for some reason and we'd have to pull that strip out, and we wouldn't have to take off this filter and everything to do that. So we'll make some measurements of where we need to put the screw holes through to attach this frame to the ceiling, and then once I get those measurements made, I'll go back in the shop and drill those real quick. I could do it in here with a hand drill, but I've got a drill press, so why not do it in there? It'll be easier than trying to overhead drill it or drill it and make a mess here in the Alpine. And if you decide to do this modification to make life easier, you're going to want to take something. I used the butt end of a hammer and pressed up on these sections of the overhead ceiling, because when these were screwed in, they put them in so hard with a electric screwdriver, I'm sure, that they pull this material out. And so what you have is small dimples or puckers on the outer edge, and it's not going to let your frame lay down as nice and tight as you'd like it to. So you can simply take a hammer or block of wood, something like that, and push on that, and you can get it to even itself out. Okay, so we use 4 screws to mount the frame up against the ceiling, and you can see with the screw type I used an oval head. I probably should have used a regular full countersunk, but with this thin of wood, I wanted a little bit more gripping power. And when I put these grills over, you're not going to see these screws anyway, so who cares? What I did was made sure I placed this so that I got the full opening from Keystone's original cutting. And as you can see, we've left ourselves just a teeny hair of a crack of room here so that we could get this seam strip off if we needed to get up into this ceiling for some reason. But the frame has dressed up the original Keystone cutout. Alpine folks, you ought to take note on that. This is how you do stuff. Okay, so now we have the new frame installed, and we have the duct installed with the 2 thumb screws. And you can see the second thumb screw right there. And we'll turn around around so you can get a side view. And we'll come around from the back side and let you see the rest of it. And so that's what we've got now. And I think that's it looks nice, it's functional. And if I need to change those filters, I've got 2 thumb screws, the grill's down, and I can change the filter real quick versus the OEM style with the 8 screws, and then trying to find the original filters, which are these, and these are hard to come by. So now let's turn on the air conditioner, and we'll run it just the fan only, high speed, and we'll observe the performance of the filter and show you that in fact it will stay in place. Okay, you can hear that the bedroom AC is running, and let's take a look up inside at the material, and let's zoom up in here. You can see that the material is staying in place like it's supposed to. You can see the material up behind the grate. But now, of course, the question is, well, is it going to actually draw the inside air through there and things like that? Well, let's see. A little bit of smoke right there. And you can see that it draws it up quite nicely and filters it. So we'll do that one more time. There's the smoke, and you can see that the new grill with the frame and the cutout filtrate material is working just fine. I'm looking at a bulk material. It's rated MERV 10, and I'll post a still shot of that along with this video, and I think the price on it's $11, and I can't remember how many square feet it is, but for $11 it's quite a bit of material, and I don't see any reason why something like that wouldn't work well either. But the cost on this filter that I used was $10 at Walmart, and we were able to cut for $10 we were able to cut 4 pieces of the filter material and still had a little bit left over. So $10 to change those filters versus the OEM filters, which are kind of hard to find, and they're not as good, I can tell you, compared to what we've got up here now. But that'll do it on this project. We've got 3 more to go. We got one here in the bedroom, and then the ones out here in the living room will be just lovely to do because we'll be standing up on a step stool. But you can see, once again, we'll zoom in, and you can see, you know, this is the factory install. The 3 screw holes you see on the left were basically what was holding the grill in place. There was one in the center on the edge that was actually working, and then on the right hand side 2 of the screws really weren't doing much, and I knew that. I knew I had a problem with that from pretty much day one after I bought it. And I talked with the dealer about it, and you know, they really didn't have anything to offer at the time, which was what I expected anyways. But you know, here we are. It took me a few years to come up with something that will work, but I think in the end, you know, when you walk up in here and look at this, you know, aesthetically, cosmetically, it looks nice. The 2 thumb screws are going to be a piece of cake. You know, to take those off, pop the old filter out, cut me up a new filter. I'll probably pre-cut some and put them in a Ziploc bag so that I've got them with us if we get into a dusty area or something like that. But there you go. And again, folks, if you don't have the wood cutting equipment and things like that, this is a project that you could still do. All you need to do is decide what size you need to make your frames, and go to Home Depot or Lowe's, someplace like that, and get the material that you want, and then tell them what measurements you need cut, and they will cut it. There's probably a nominal charge on it, but you know, if you don't have $300 or $400 worth of chop saws and things like that, you can still get that done. And then as far as gluing these together, the glue that I used on the edges of the frame was basically to hold the initial shape. And once everything is mounted up in place, the screws are holding the frame up in place. You could put it up without gluing it and everything, but I wanted to try to get as nice a finished job as I could, even though you're only going to see 1/8 of an inch of that wood all the way around the frame. So there you go. That's it from the Alpine guy. Hope you enjoyed the trials and tribulations of this project.